Guys, thank you so much and welcome back to Tharon's Take. I really appreciate the support that I've been receiving. The episodes have been going great. And shout out to my team who has done a wonderful job, who are basically been, dealing with these sort of technical issues that go along with doing a podcast, particularly with podcasts on YouTube and making sure that the editing is great. And also shout out to my main man, Toro, for everything that he's been doing to make sure that this podcast is stellar. Okay, we're going to talk about what is going to happen in Georgia in 2026. I talked about how many people turned out in 2025, this year for the PSC race. For those of you that don't live in Georgia, that's our Public Service Commission race. Turnout statewide was low. Democrats picked up some big seats there. But we recently, last week, just completed the runoffs. And in a month prior to that, we had some very important municipal elections all across the state of Georgia. Some of these municipal elections, whether it was mayor, city council, school board, went to runoffs. We also had some county races, and so of course you had some judges who was up. And so people are asking me like, okay, if everyone is telling me this is the most important election of our lifetime in 2025, then what should I expect next year in 2026? And I'm here to tell you again that this is going to be the most important election of our lifetime. But let's talk about what's at stake. You're going to literally have the most competitive U.S. Senate race in the country. U.S. Senator John Ossoff is the number one target for Republicans. They believe that with the right money and the right message, they're going to try to give John a run for his money. I believe Senator Ossoff will be fine. He doesn't have a Democratic challenger, so we have to wait and see who the nominee will be from the Republican side. But if John Ossoff stays on message, continues to raise money, and continues to do constituent services the way that he's been doing it, I think he would be fine. The challenge the senator is going to have, though, is that it's going to be so much money and research that's going to be put out there on our TV screens, through our social feeds, and all this sort of rage that we've been seeing from people on both sides, but particularly trying to get the Republicans fired up against him. So that's going to be a very competitive race. In the governor's race, this is the first time in 8 years that the seat will be open. Brian Kemp is the current governor. He can't run again. You have candidates on the Republican side, candidates on the Democratic side. The primary is going to be in May of 2026. And if there's a runoff on that side, it'd be in June. And so now that the municipal elections are over and we're getting ready to go into the legislative session, you're going to see a lot of these candidates start to try to raise a lot of money. And for those who actually are thinking about or has planned to return to the legislative session in Georgia, if you're a state lawmaker, you cannot raise money, any money from anybody during the legislative session. So we have a lot of people right now who are either a state rep or a actual state senator. We have some folks that are in constitutional offices right now. So they are going to be in a very tough position of not being able to raise money. So they got to get all the money in they can before January hits. And then lastly, I think that, what we saw in the PSC race where Democrats were able to pick up some seats, we saw some gains of municipality races last week as well. I think Republicans and Democrats are doing everything they can to get their message out to their base. But also, you're going to see a tremendous amount of emphasis put on who are those independent, moderate voters? Who are those folks out there who I believe in Georgia always determine elections? Democrats get about 45 to 46% of the vote. You see Republicans historically getting anywhere between 48 to 49% of their base, but where elections are won are in the middle. Who's able to go out and get these independents and these moderates to come out? And then, of course, women will play a very important role in this and what's on their minds right now. Now, we've seen some recent polling. Cost of living, affordability is at the top of the list. People feel like they don't have enough money to buy groceries. We saw the federal shutdown happen. We still have hospitals closing in Georgia. Mental health is still a big issue. So funding for that, our veterans, our teachers, our nurses. We see all these things that are going on at the national level, but also on the state level. We just went through stuff with SNAP benefits. We had kids out here that didn't have resources that get enough to eat. Still, public schools are in need of more funding. We have some schools that are closing. So I'm just kind of giving you a snapshot of issues that are going to be talked about. And of course, we're going to talk about whether or not Georgia should expand Medicaid. But the thing that I want you guys to realize is that while this election is going to be controversial and there's a lot of negativity out there with politics, I want you guys to stay encouraged and to make sure you do your research. The Republicans are going to try to elect somebody in their primary that can win in November, and Democrats are going to do their best to try to elect somebody in their primary that can win in November of next year as well. The last thing I would tell you is that you're going to be able to come to this podcast and we're going to have guests on where we're going to talk about not just elections, but I want to take you guys deep into the campaigns. I've done a lot of races in my time, over 20 years doing campaigns. A lot has changed, a lot has remained the same, but definitely wanted you guys to prepare that even though you got a little fatigue, you feel like 2025 was a lot of elections, those mail pieces, those text messages, you guys are pressing stop and don't want them to keep coming. Just brace yourself. And it's football season, so buckle your chin strap. It's going to be more intensified in 2026 because Georgia is a purple state. Republicans are trying to protect what they have. Democrats are trying to build on the gains that they've made recently. So again, stay and get courage, continue to vote, and make sure that you continue to listen to this podcast for some of your inside information about campaigns and politics.